Hey folks, I'm Tennessee Brando with the MeidasTouch Network. I hope everyone's doing good. Today I want to talk a little bit about culture wars, and I do realize that a whole lot of people that I'm directing my conversation towards might not watch MeidasTouch, so that's why it's up to you guys to share this video with your Fox News watching uncle or your QAnon cousins, or the next time you're at Sunday dinner and they start mouthing off about the latest culture wars, you can tell them what old Brando said on Midas and see how mad it makes them. But if I started trying to name to you guys the culture wars that the right wing has been fighting over the last several years, I know that I would miss a few. I'm going to attempt to name a couple. If I forget any, you guys drop them in the comments. But we had people out burning their Carhartts. We had them boycotting Dick's Sporting Goods, Starbucks. We had the whole Bud Light debacle. We've had them mad at Target. They've been mad at Chick-fil-A, which is a really odd one because that was always the Lord's chicken. You know, that was always the one that they took up for and defended, and now they're mad at it. Mr. Potato Head, M&M's, The Little Mermaid, and now we've made it up to the Barbie movie. Ted Cruz is really upset with the Barbie movie. He says that it's pushing Chinese propaganda. Like any little girl that sits and watches this movie is going to pick up on it and become, into Chinese propaganda. Take a look at this clip of Ted Cruz, and then we're going to come back and talk more about this.
As you just showed, the map is drawn like in crayons. It's roughly a map of the world, but China, Asia is just this big crayon box. But then right to the east of where China is are the 9 dashes. And to anyone who's not really focused on geopolitics, those lines don't mean anything. But what those lines indicate is the Communist Party of China puts out official maps with those 9 dashes, and they are asserting sovereignty over the entire South China Sea. They're saying all of that is China's. And by the way, all of their neighbors disagree. Vietnam disagrees. The Philippines disagrees. Actually, the country of Vietnam has banned the movie Barbie from their nation because these 9 dashes are replicated.
So they can't see Margot Robbie. That is a huge mistake. Does Warner Brothers have to push this propaganda so that they allow the movie to be showcased in China, which is what, like 1.8 billion potential customers?
Yeah, look, that's exactly what's going on here. Obviously, the little girls that are going to see Barbie, none of them are going to have any idea what those dashes mean. This is really designed for the eyes of the Chinese censors, and they're trying to kiss up to the Chinese Communist Party because they want to make money selling the movie in China. And sadly, Jesse, this is a pattern we've seen of lots of Hollywood movie studios allowing China to censor American movies. And I got to tell you, I introduced legislation, it's called the Script Act, that says the federal government will not allow movie makers to use U.S. government assets, things like jets or tanks or ships or helicopters.
Good.
If they allow the Chinese government to censor their films. And my legislation in substantial parts passed in December of last year. Just a few weeks ago, the Pentagon put out the official guidance saying, if you let China censor your movies, you're not getting U.S. assets. Sadly, the Barbie movie, they didn't have any F-35s with Barbie flying them, so it didn't have leverage over them.
So any reasonable person would watch a clip like that and say to themselves, why is Ted Cruz going off about Barbie? What is the end game in talking about this? Why is this an important matter? Well, in Ted Cruz's world, it actually is. And I've got a clip here I want you to watch from MAGA Uncovered with Ron Filipkowski. He does a really good job of explaining what Ted Cruz is up to. Take a look.
I mean, what's he even talking about? It's just a movie, for goodness sake. I mean, I just don't get it with that guy. I presume it's just like publicity. He's like, oh, I haven't been on TV recently, so I'll just say something ridiculous and hopefully I'll get some coverage.
These guys like Ted and like Jesse Waters, there's a few that are just notorious, who are constantly trolling pop culture, movies, products, music videos, the Super Bowl halftime show, commercials, constantly trolling pop culture, looking for traction because there's crossover appeal. They understand that if they can start a controversy with Taylor Swift or with the Barbie movie or with Legos or, Mr. Potato Head, they know that's going to get them on Fox News and get them some headlines and get them some attention. And so, yeah, Ted Cruz, he's been out of the news for a few months. He hasn't been able to get any notice. His podcast is probably the most important thing in his life. he loves that podcast more than he loves being in the Senate.
Yeah.
And he makes a lot of money off that podcast, by the way. He just signed a big contract, so he's always looking to promote that podcast. And so this is just him trying to find some way of stirring up controversy, because he knows, look, the Barbie movie is the big blockbuster movie of the summer for families, besides Oppenheimer, which is more of an adult movie. But this is the big pop culture. So he's just trying to find some way to pick a fight with the Barbie movie. And some of the right wingers have, I guess there's like a trans character or something in Barbie that they've latched onto, and Ted decides to latch onto the South China Sea, as if some 13-year-old girl is going to watch the Barbie movie and go, you know what? I no longer recognize Taiwan's sovereignty because of this map in Barbie.
Ron makes a really good point there. Ted Cruz is trying to get his name in the news. He's trying to keep his podcast relevant. He's trying to get clicks. And he knows that if he goes on Fox News and starts talking about their latest culture war, he knows that he's going to get plays, and he knows that he's going to get his message out there. But where I want to take this conversation next is, I want to talk directly to the people who gets caught up in these kind of culture wars that the likes of Ted Cruz pushes. And again, I realize that a lot of those people may not be watching MeidasTouch. That's why we have to share it with them. But to those people, I would say this: fighting these culture wars, what do they actually do for you? What do they actually accomplish in your life, and how do they make your life better? It sounds to me like the only thing they do is get your blood pressure up. Because a lot of times, none of these things that we're talking about is something you're ever going to face in this world. Let's take Bud Light, for example. If you have a problem with who Bud Light puts on a can, you don't have to buy Bud Light. You can stop buying it, but you don't have to go out and destroy it. And you don't have to go out and encourage everyone to stop buying it. And you don't have to wish that the whole company goes bankrupt simply because you disagree with who they put on a can. You can simply switch brands, or you can have a little bit more of a brain here and realize that can was never made public. But how is fighting these culture wars affecting your life other than just raising your blood pressure? And the Republicans goes out here and they talk about all that's wrong with the country. They talk about inflation. They talk about crime. They talk about the border. But what have they done for any of those things? What kind of new ideas or new bills have they introduced that could help your fellow Americans, that could help make your life easier? I've been at my job before so many times. I've walked in the break room, sat down to eat my lunch, and I would hear people over here just going on and on about the latest culture war. Oh, did you hear about Mr. Potato Head? I can't believe this shit. And I'm like, how is that affecting us? We're all struggling to make ends meet here. And while the Democratic Party may not be perfect, and while I may not agree with every single idea or thing that they propose, at least they have ideas, and they're not keeping me distracted by all these useless culture wars. I remember a time when the Republican Party talked about being the party of morals and values. They talked about being the party for the working class. That's always been their shtick. And for a long time, even though they were full of shit, they still stuck to that narrative. But now they've got over here in the weeds, they're fighting this woke mob that basically is just a straw man for the left that they've created to keep everyone distracted, because people like us begin pointing out, hey, they say they're the party of the working class, they say they're for the working poor, but they're actually not. And the more we point it out, the more they begin to realize, oh shit, our voting records are public. Oh shit, they can look up to see that we voted against them. Oh shit, look, we did vote against something that could help these people. Oh, wait a minute, they can actually Google and look up now that we've done nothing for them. So let's do this. Let's create these phony boogeymen. Let's create these phony culture wars. Let's get everybody worked up and distracted. And it comes down to the old surrender under protest style of politics. And I learned this from the great Mike Cooley from the Drive-By Truckers, so I'm going to be quoting from him. But he talked about how that these politicians will come out and they will take these stances that they know is going nowhere. They will introduce a bill that they know is unconstitutional because they are trying to appease their voters, but they're also wanting to appease the businesses that they have to do business with. So what they do is they come up with a bill that they know is unconstitutional, and they take it up and they say, here, they take it to the Supreme Court and say, hey, look at this, watch this, that we need to propose this bill. The Supreme Court looks at it, they strike it down, and then the politician comes out and says, see there, I was fighting for your rights, and the evil federal government, they struck it down. That's why we need less government in our lives. And it's just a vicious cycle of people getting played and nothing ever changing. You may not like the Democratic Party. They may not be your cup of tea. but they are the only party right now that has any new ideas, that has any idea at all, and is introducing anything that could help the working people. So the Republican Party can sit over here all day long and talk about how they are for morals and values, but we know they're really not. They can talk about how they're for the working class. They've clearly shown that they're not. And yet working people will continue to get behind them and support them, all because they're fighting the latest culture war against Chick-fil-A. And that's funny to me because yesterday it was the Lord's chicken and they loved it, but now they're mad at them. I can't even keep track of it. And I say to myself, what does that have to do with how I put food on my family's table? I have a dad who's battling a lot of health problems at the moment. And I don't hear the Republican Party saying anything that could help my dad at all. I don't hear them saying anything that could make our lives easier as we're dealing with what my dad's going through. I just see a bunch of bullshit about let's go out and burn our Carhartt or let's go out and shoot up a bunch of bottles of Bud Light. That's not helping my dad. That's not helping your dad. That's not helping your family. That's just bullshit culture wars to keep you distracted from the fact that the Republican Party does not give a good damn about any of you. So be sure to share this video with your Fox News watching uncle or your QAnon cousins, or bring it up at Sunday dinner and see how it goes. Let us know how it went for you. We hope to keep getting these messages out there and getting them heard. And be sure to click subscribe here on MeidasTouch and let everyone know where we're at. Until next time, folks, I'm Tennessee Brando. You guys keep tuning in. I'll keep telling you the truth.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.